All right, here we go. Just kind of hit it right from the bat. I'm Taylor Calloway, Kevin Witt's my business partner. We are principal architects and owners of First Lamp Architects, located here in Seattle. And yeah, we've been doing this. We've had a company for 11 years. We started as a design build company, and now we do pure just architecture only, but we have done in the last year built several of our own projects. This one we didn't. This one we teamed up with R.W. Anderson Homes, who was the contractor, but with the building experience we've had, we were able to kind of help them through this process. This is one of their first green homes to do, and so it was kind of fun to team up with them and kind of go on the journey with the contractor's eyes. So yeah, the clients came to us. They were downsizing, coming in empty nesters, ready to move into that phase of their life, and wanted a house that was just which we're calling the stacked house, just simple and easy, and life's complicated, so why make it more complicated with your house? So at the same time, they wanted a healthy, both energy efficient home. So so we kind of came up with this theme of simplicity, and we wanted to apply that idea to everything: the geometry, the design, the maintenance, and so we kind of came up with these categories of things to focus on to kind of help achieve those goals. And they were kind of energy, light, water, and air. And so we just kind of applied that, the concept. Let's make all of that as simple as we can, energy efficient, and try to make that helps with the budget if things are simpler. So what does that start with? Well, it starts with, in this case, a very simple geometry. So we're going to talk about a lot of things today, but one of the things that we focused on is making the envelope, focusing on the envelope. And the simpler the house is, the simpler it is to achieve all of those goals I just brought up before. So thus the name of the house. We started with basically two rectangles. The bottom one was the public rectangle. The top one is the private rectangle. And we just rotated the top one. And by rotating it, well, then of course we stacked them together, thus the stacked house. And then by rotating it, we created this overhang for where the people enter in. Let me get so we have this side where people enter, and then this side where the cars enter into the public square. And again, the simple move, by just rotating the block, we created these overhangs, so they get double duty out of it, being the floor and also being this covered entry. What that also helped create was this open space on the outside for gardens. There's the garden off the backyard, and then off the front, and then of course the main living garden, which is on the roof. Again, by rotating this block, we created an opening on the top floor that allowed for a lot of things that we'll talk about in the next few slides. But basically, what was left over were these open areas, these garden areas. One of the things that we look at every time we design a house is it's the northwest, so it's pretty dark. So we have to really consider where the sun is and how that interacts with the building. That of course makes you think about not only like where the light is throughout the day, but also how to passively heat the home during the winter months. So we oriented this house very much to the south. This is a solar diagram that shows summer sunrise here, and then winter sunrise is from this direction, winter sunset and summer sunset. And those all, and then of course the thickness of the solar here kind of indicates where most of the heat is going to come, which is through the middle of the day. We use this for all sorts of things, view angles, like which side of the house to put like the main bedroom on. You know, a lot of times we try to get it on the east if we can, for morning light and things like that. So that's what this shows. This just to orient you real quick. This is the site plan. This is the property line. Here's the sidewalk and street out here. This is an alley where you enter in from this direction. So the stacked block, it'll become clear in the next slide, but in fact, I'll just go to it. So here's the main floor plan. There's this first, the blue indicating the first block. This was the public block where we have this, you enter in here, this is covered, the cars park here, you enter in that side, you've got your mud powder, you've got your kitchen in the middle, and then the living dining kind of connecting to the gardens and the courtyards out to the side. So this becomes more like a pavilion. We just kind of referred to it as a pavilion most of the project. So then going up to the next floor, this was the rotated block above that we stacked on top. And then this is, of course, you've got the master suite, we've got the craft room in the middle, and we've got the two guest beds, which are very small. They wanted their kids to come back, but they didn't want to be too comfortable and stay for too long. So they're actually pretty small bedrooms. One of them is a workout. She uses more as a workout space. And of course, you know, this nice craft room that opens up into that roof deck it's out to this side. So that these doors can slide up and stack to one side. So you can have that, you know, her craft room could be kind of open to this garden area. And again, all this is opening up to the south. So we're just really trying to light up this side of the house as much as possible, which we'll get into more. All right, so I'm going to go in reverse. We're going to talk about air first. How do we approach air when we're thinking about this? How do we simplify that for this project? Of course, this is a picture back last summer during the fires. And you can kind of see how smoggy and gross it got during that time. That's not likely to change, unfortunately. So how do we deal with that? Well, first thing we did was put the mechanical room centrally in the heated envelope for two reasons. One, if it's in the middle, it's easier to access the rest of the house. That's just a logistical building thing. And then also, if it's in the middle and it's heated, you're not taxing the heating and cooling system. So it runs much more efficiently this way. So that's kind of centrally located there. And in this mechanical room, and we're going to get there's a couple of components to this. One is that the building is super airtight. We're going to talk about that in the energy side, but first it's airtight. And then when you do an airtight building, you have to bring in fresh air somehow. In this case, we're using an HRV or a heat recovery ventilator. This is just kind of critical. Just think of it as like the lungs of the house. It's pulling in fresh air from the outside. There's a heat exchange element of that where the cold air comes in and it goes by the warm air, the stale air that's getting ejected outside. And as it does, it heats that air up a little bit. So it doesn't, again, helps with the heating and cooling of the home. Or it doesn't add to the heating and cooling load as much that way. But most importantly, it's bringing in that air and then it's being filtered, exterior fresh air, and it's being put into all the rooms throughout the house. So it's distributed evenly. So you got an airtight envelope, and then you've got this HRV that's basically filtering and bringing in fresh air for all the occupants. And then the other part was for heating and air conditioning, we use ductless heat pumps. This is a mini split system. You can see where we put, in this case, we put the two small. These two heat pumps heat and cool the entire house. So when you do an efficient home, you can do a more efficient and small heating and cooling system. This over here is showing what we did. We did a mixture of both a couple of head units in some of the small bedrooms because of access. And then the rest of the house is handled with this air handler. This is also the mechanical room, and there are very short little duct runs off of that. So the idea is that we're minimizing ducts as much as possible, thus helping not to push and move around pollens and dander and all that through the house. So it's a much more efficient way. Not only is the heating and cooling part efficient itself, but the air is also a lot more healthy throughout the house. So that's what you achieve with mini split systems. All right, light. Well, this is Northwest. This is how some of us feel sometime. COVID hasn't helped us either. So we put a very large emphasis, like we mentioned in the site plan of trying to bring as much light from the south as possible. Of course, this is a tight urban lot, so you've got neighbors right up next to you. So how do you, so there's privacy and view concerns. So, what we try to do is implement, and then you'll see these clear story lights, as many as possible throughout the house in order to bring in that southern light. But also at the same time, you can see the neighbor back there. So a small strip that's raised for privacy. And then on the sides, we can control the view. On the east and west, we opened up these sliding doors out to the garden outside. It's also evident here up above, which we'll show you more detail later. But here again, clear story lights, highlights here again facing the neighbors. This is the main bedroom. So we have some on the corner, but then also try to add some high ones for privacy and more light. The main entry, this faces the street, is blocked out with lots of glass. We floated the stair in front of it to allow light to kind of get double use out of that space. So it's not only circulation, but it's also where we can bring a lot of light in. But because of privacy, you'll see, outside is that concrete screen wall that we put in, which we'll talk about in more detail. Energy. So as we mentioned before, the first place you start when you want an energy efficient home is the envelope. You've got insulation, which we did advanced framing on this. That just means the studs are 24 inches apart. And we packed the walls full of blown in batt insulation, which is a little bit more efficient than regular batt insulation, but the fluffy stuff you put in, this gets blown in with nets. And then you come back and you seal it up as best as you can. This is one of the first projects where we transitioned away from caulks and to seal everything to tape. So you can kind of see this blue tape here. The contractor taped up all the edges and corners around windows, and basically just trying to make the building as tight as we could. You lose about 40% of your energy through air movement through the wall. So it's the number one most critical element into creating an energy efficient home. Oop, did it again. Just more examples. We're using some advanced wall weather resistant barrier or building paper. You can kind of see that this tape works in conjunction with that on both the outside and of course on the inside. We did another air barrier, where the main air barrier is on the inside of the stud in this case. And then you come back and you tape everything, even plumbing penetrations. Anywhere where somebody poked a hole in it, you want to come back and tape that up. So, everything is basically, when you're done, it's just the inside was entirely wrapped. This stuff is pretty incredible. This paper here is what we call intelligent paper. Like, it actually will open and close depending on how much vapor needs to move through it. So it can become what's called vapor impervious up to very pervious, which allows, depending on what the heating and cooling cycles and the drying out you need, the building is kind of in a way smart and allows for that to happen in the way that it should. So it changes throughout the seasons, which way you want how you want to control your vapor, but at the same time it's airtight. I can't explain the science behind that, but it's airtight and allows water to go through it. So it's pretty amazing stuff.
When you're building an airtight home, like Taylor said, we've kind of materials, like we know how to insulate. Windows are made better now where they have more thermal resistance. And so the big frontier, the thing that we can solve as builders for energy loss in homes is the air tightness, right? I don't want to call it the last frontier, but like that's the thing you solve during construction. And so when you make a home as airtight as you possibly can, like Taylor's talking about, the risk that you run is vapor, is mold in your walls. That everybody's heard horror stories about black mold and you know, and all of that occurs when in the thermal gradient that's inside your studs, inside the stud bay of your walls, there's a dew point. So if it's cold enough outside and the air on the inside is warm enough and has enough moisture in it, you know, this can happen every single day of the year if that vapor isn't allowed to transfer through the wall. And so you really, as you make an envelope, as you make walls a lot more kind of intelligent, like we're talking about, like you really start looking at perm ratings and like all of these papers and the tapes and everything, they're all engineered and they've come a long way, even in the last 5 or 10 years. And there's a lot more, a larger selection of really good products out there that do allow vapor to make it all the way through the wall system, so that the house can react to changes in relative humidity a little bit more dynamically, I guess. So.
Yeah, and it's nice. So and then the HRV kind of kicks in again. So when you have that vapor drive going back to the inside of the house and you have any moisture coming in, it picks that up, right? So that HRV through the air circulation just kind of picks up that moisture and takes it out of the house. So thus keeping your relative humidity in the home down, which is what you kind of want for good indoor air quality. This is just going to talk real briefly about blower door test. Of course, we tested the house a couple of times. This one was one of our lowest blower door before we did another passive house. If anyone was here last year, we presented a passive house that we designed and built. But in this case, you know, and actually I stole this picture from that project. But so just to give you a sense, what's a blower door test? Well, they put this, you can see in this picture, he's putting this kind of tarp over an opening, and then you pressurize the house and you just test how airtight it is. And that's something that's become more and more critical. It's becoming part of the base code even. Right now, the energy code allows for 5 air changes per hour, but that's pretty terrible. Built green is more than that, which this house is a certified built green home. For a passive house, just know that that's one of the highest. You know, one is you want 1 or below. This house was about a passive house standard, so it was about a 1. So all of that work that went into the tapes and all that was worth it. And this is just kind of how you prove it. It's always good to test. If you can test things, then you know you did the right moves.
In this, so what that's doing, there's basically the ACH 50, it's 50 pascals of pressure difference between the inside of the house and the outside, right? So, and that happens on a regular basis when the wind is blowing outside, right? And that's what this is simulating. This is simulating a normal day with a you know, fairly average breeze that does create pressure differentials. And to most people, like, it is beyond their intuition that the entire volume of the air inside of a house can change 5 times just from the wind blowing outside, 5 times in an hour. And that's energy code. Like, that's the code minimum. Like Taylor was saying, it's pretty easy to get to that standard. But the idea, like, it's still, like, when most people learn that, they almost don't believe it. It's like, really? 5 times in an hour. And so once you understand that, and like, yes, this is a measurable thing, it really highlights, you know, the idea of heat loss. Like, well, I have to heat all the air in my home 5 times in an hour, basically. And so that highlights why there's so much focus on air tightness.
So the water category, well, in this case, it's required by city code to retain the water that basically lands on your property. The idea is what they're pushing for is they don't want to, on a big rain event, they don't want to surcharge the existing storm sewer system, which we all know every once in a while on a really bad rains can overflow. The sewer just ends up overflowing into the ocean. So it's way too expensive to fix the infrastructure of the city. So what they're doing is they're making everyone retain that water as much as possible on the site for a short period of time. It's not something you have to keep forever. Obviously, the idea is that you build bioretention planters or swales or something in that, which we did, and that fill up. In this case, because we were trying to kind of highlight all the elements and take that requirement and use it towards the design and kind of celebrate the water. So in this case, as part of the entry sequence, we put this bioretention planter out here. So this is the planter. So all the water that hits the roof or any pervious surface of the house gets tied into this planter. So during big events, it goes in there, fills up a little bit, and then slowly over time, it drains back out. And so what we did was we put this here, and then we also brought in that geometry through the courtyard and brought that planter into the house. Excuse me. So under the stair, which you'll see is kind of another planter. It's dry, but it's still kind of, we wanted to highlight that connection. So that's what that is. So, and of course, the part that's water is just that part. But again, we just kind of wanted to make that visual connection. So going out, this is it under construction in the front of the house. We wanted to kind of play up that element of water in an actual feature. So, and with that, we did this other concrete wall here that's both structural and a screening element. Going back to the idea of simplicity, we were trying to make simple, clean moves that did a lot. Each one would do a lot of work. So not only is it structural, but it's a screen wall, and it's also part of the bioretention planter. Then we cut out this little sliver in the screen wall that's in the front, as you can see here. On the right, that opens up so you can get that visual connection from inside the house out to there. Still, it's a small sliver, so it's still retaining the privacy screening element. And the screening element, then again, going back to light, allowed us to open up that side of the wall, which you'll get a more clear view of in a minute. But that's what that's all about. So, finished product. Here's the screen wall, the celebration of water at this place, and then with a little bit of an opening, and it's kind of finished. But also this wall is structural. So basically, so it was a simpler structure as well. If this would have been cantilevered, it would have been a huge structure and it had to be supported somehow. But we just wanted to grab a couple of spots and use that wall as that element. So that's what you're seeing in there. The rest of the pictures are just pretty pictures walking through the house. So going through finally to the tour part. So this is the main entrance, pedestrian entrance from the street. You come in, again, the front door is off center to be kind of behind that. So there's that privacy element. This is going back to the backyard garden and parking pavilion. We decided to open this up so it felt, again, more open. It's also a lot healthier because when you trap a car in a garage and the garage is attached to the house, all the fumes that come off of cars, the carbon monoxide and all that can kind of seep its way into the house. It's one of the I guess most toxic areas of a home. So in this case, we did a carport that also doubles as a covered outdoor pavilion. So if they don't park there, they make this connection we talked about to the garden, and then this is a nice paver system. So they have parties or has guests over. Maybe it's inclement weather. They'd have a place to kind of be. But everyone needs storage in their garage. So next to it, that's what this element was us just building in bike storage. One of the clients was a big time cyclist and needed a place to work on his bikes and store them. So that's what this box is for. And there's two big double doors, kind of allowing for kind of taking over that function of a garage that gives you for storage and whatnot. So, and then you enter the house there for the back. But this is a good kind of aerial view of the garden, really the upper floor garden. This shows where how we rotated the stack block over, creating that covered outdoor space that also is part of the bioretention system. This area where water hits in here, you don't have to account for it because it'll basically stay in the soil and the living roof here, and you just kind of evaporate slowly. So this is also kind of really should be almost water garden as well. But yeah, and these are the double doors that open up to that craft room we mentioned. There again, over here is inside there is the main bedroom, which is here, and then the other 2 bedrooms on the other side. We did, yeah, and again, we popped up, I guess, getting back to light, you can kind of see this view of again, a clear storing light that's flooding down into the craft room, which has low walls that allow the light to spill out over into where the stairs are and then downstairs. So really trying to create the middle of the house, because again, we want to bring light in the middle because that's usually the darkest place of a home. So that's what those strategies are doing. More views of the screen wall, outdoor courtyard. Again, that's the main living space. This is the stair here. You know, just an outdoor pavilion gives them a place to kind of connect to light and nature, but with privacy, with the screen coming in for that privacy. Again, just looking back the other direction, you can see the stack block really highlighted in this view. This is a little more detailed view of the entryway. We did a large door, and then here you can see the garden that's underneath the stairs, and then the stairs that's an open risers, and again, just trying to highlight let much light filter through into the house as possible. Oh, we'll talk a little bit about material. We chose to go with this. The material on the outside of the house is black corrugated metal. Again, going back to that concept of simplicity, they don't want a house that they have to maintain a lot. So we did the corrugated metal that'll last the life of the home. It's also a great product because it's when you do the corrugated metal like this, it gives you a natural rain screen. We didn't talk much about rain screens, but basically what we try to do on homes is build a cavity between the exterior paper, you saw that black paper on the outside, and the actual finished material on the outside. Most of the time, if it's wood or hardy panel or a lot of products, you have to build a furring system into the whole product, into the assembly. So in this case, we could, with the corrugated metal, you get with the corrugations going in and out of the building, you get these natural air gaps in between the metal and the paper. It kind of helps on costs of installing metal. So you get long-term durability, you get save a little bit without having to do a true rain screen system because it's kind of built into the system itself. And so that's why we went with the black corrugated metal. I'll talk about the siding. Go back real quick. Just while we're on material, up here, all the white is just hardy panel. We do open joint hardy panel system on this, and that again allows basically a more range screen to work. So just going back, all of the white is hardy. So those are the only 2 facade materials, is the hardy panel and the black corrugated metal, and the soffits being just clear cedar to warm it up and warm up those areas. Moving to the inside, again, just kind of highlighting the stair and all the moves we did for that. Again, all about light, all about, bringing in natural light through the stair. And then here's that garden element that responds to the bioretention planter out here. You can kind of see how that connection is made this way. Yeah, and then just an open tread riser system. One of these, this is a small move that we did, these double treads, and the reason we did that, it was a lot less expensive to do 2 smaller treads than it was to do 1 large tread that was big enough, and we saw that as a design opportunity to kind of play up that openness of the stair and kind of, so you can see these little reveals and gaps in between. It kind of helps highlight the openness. You can see there, but this is the main living room fireplace. This fireplace is wrapped in was commonly referred to as shasugi bond. So it's just a charred wood siding that you, charred wood, in this case, just the material that's around the the fireplace, trying to do it very clean, again, simple move where everything looks the same color. That way, ultimately, this is a piece of art we hung when we shot the house at the beginning, but it ended up being a TV, and behind that is all the built-in stuff. So you don't see any of the cables, and it ties over here to this this media center. Oop, I did not mean it. Go back. Nope. There we go. Ties into this there. This is a perforated metal door that we blackened so it would match all the other dark, but also it's perforated so it allows all the components to breathe. And there's a steel cap on top, and then the rest of it's just the shell sugiyamon. You can kind of see it. It's called full gaitered. I mean, so it looks charred. And this is an old Japanese technique that's kind of become pretty popular. Just to put on the record, we were one of the first to use this, but now you see it all over the place. But it's beautiful and it's great. It's a great way. There's a great building product to use on the exterior of a house if you don't mind your house looking like it maybe got a little burnt a little bit. But just the charring technique protects against insects and also weathering for longer periods of time. Well, here's the kitchen. Pretty straightforward, small kitchen, but open to the living room. Everything's just kind of, open concept. We did some cove lighting above it. It kind of highlights where the kitchen is. Did this kind of, we like doing this where you do the tall vertical elements in between and kind of have the ability to do this punched middle part. We changed the material in this case. Mandy Calloway was the interior designer for this project. So she worked with them, and they kind of came up with this kitchen scheme, and that looks great. Maybe might mention the hood vent. That's another thing built in green homes. One of the things we've kind of learned after doing this is actually the most polluted place with the most toxins and carcinogens and the things that can harm you the most from an indoor air quality standpoint is your range. So when you're cooking on your range, all the particles, everything come off of that has to be dealt with. So in this case, we got a pretty powerful hood vent in there to help pull the toxins off of there. So that's just something to keep in mind if any of you guys are doing a green home. Put some attention to that. Okay, and then we got the main
What was the material for the cabinets, that black material you switched over to?
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah. This is just a laminate. Yeah, it's a gray laminate. It's matte. It's kind of a matte gray laminate. That's it. It's all, these are just doors. They're built exactly the same way the wood ones are. It's just the cover is just laminated. Yeah. The countertop material, Caesar stone or quartzite of some kind. Might be Southstone. I can't remember the exact product, but it's one of those quartzite.
Taylor, was that is that the Phoenix laminate, or was this?
No.
We didn't use the Phoenix on this one, but that is it is a really popular one. It's FENIX. I believe it's an Italian product, right? They were one of the first.
Yep.
Matte laminates are pretty popular now in contemporary design. Phoenix was one of the first, but now there's quite a few that are available. But and it can be really inexpensive. The nicer matte laminates, like you can't even put a fingerprint on it. It's really amazing the way the surface is kind of engineered, and it stays looking really clean and just a very diffuse handling of the light. So yeah,
it's almost like magic. I don't know how they do it. It's pretty cool, but
yeah, you can sit there and try to smear your fingerprints across it, and it just won't take. It's pretty interesting.
So yeah, just going back to the durability, simplicity theme, like the whole backsplash is also countertop. All of the cabinets around where you cook were the laminate, which is much easier to clean. You don't have to worry so much about the veneer of the wood warping and whatnot. But then we wrap and then bring out on the outside, we brought this wood in, which is a vertical rift cut white oak. So the rift cut gives you those vertical lines in there. It's a little bit more expensive, but you get you can control the grains of the wood a little bit more because the way that they cut the wood out, sitting on a concrete floor. So polished concrete floor. And yeah. So this is probably the last slide, I think, but the main bathroom. So big mirror, lots of, again, clear story lights above the mirror. And large format tiles, integrated pattern with a large walk-in shower, no tub. You got these vertical lights. Yeah, and then of course, architectural photography makes things look a little bigger than necessarily are. This is actually fairly tight. So to put 2 sinks in and leave a lot of room. So we did this move where we cut a long trough sink out of the countertop, which is also a quartzite type Caesar stone type product that slides back at an angle to a linear drain. That way, they can both use the sink, but if somebody's using the sink, you've got this really big one, and it leaves a little bit more room on the side than it would if we'll be able to put two sinks in.
It's an interesting trend that we're seeing in home design that many clients are now asking for. I'd say half of our clients now that we're currently designing homes for have asked specifically for a single basin sink in their main bathroom. Just kind of an interesting thing. Even like Taylor said, there's enough space here for 2 smaller basins, but more and more often people are choosing to have a little more countertop space so they can store all of their daily items there and prioritizing that over an actual basin.
Yeah, so this was a 5-star. We got a certified 5-star Built Green. No small task. There's a lot of other things that come with that we didn't review. Recycled content, low VOC products, LED lighting, like high efficiency lighting, and low flow plumbing fixtures. And there's a lot of things that kind of come with that, but we didn't get into all of that. If you're curious about any of those things, we can certainly talk about it. And just kind of, this was us, architects, interior designer, the builder was R.W. Anderson Homes in this case, and then Evergreen certified, did the certification. Right, so we're going to try something here. We're going to try and make this feel a little bit more like a tour by walking through the 3D model that we used to present to the clients originally. We've cleaned it up a little bit for today, but so I'm going to switch over to that model, which is on a different computer. And hopefully this works. And in the meantime, feel free, if anybody has any questions, we can certainly, I think, treat this part like more like a real tour. I can stop and move around and look at things and say, hey, what's that over there? So let's see if this works. So here we are, back of the house. This is showing, here's our pavilion here in the middle, big opening of the garden to the craft room, clear story lighting above, allowing light into the middle of the house, but protected. Here's be cool if it was filled with water like this all the time, but it's the time of day. Here's showing this little kind of special fin we did, this fin design move on the front. North side of the home, also, this is where water comes down here, can collect into this basically gutter, and that everything is tied down into that. This is also where we could put vent terminations and the HRV, turn on all that on the north side that you don't see as much. Here's the courtyard, moving into the house, front door, garden under the stairs. I showed you the relationship behind the front door, of course, is a entry closet. You come in the house and you go right into the kitchen, either from the front or the carport. You come from the carport area back here, you come into the mudroom, and then also you have the pantry. So for loading loading and unloading from the grocery store. Just for pantries right there. There's an actual fridge in this area as part of the mudroom, and the powder room's back in the back. That's not modeled up too well, but yeah, and then you move directly in the kitchen. This is, oop, I double clicked, sorry. This is a kind of a bar, canning, extra sink, extra kitchen storage area behind the kitchen. More countertop space. Living room open up to the outdoor area on that side. And dining room also open. Again, here's that screen wall, pulling the screen all the way across. So we could really open this up. These doors open, these open out, as well as these that can provide light, or I mean air, well, light and air movement through the house. It's kind of a funny question people ask us a lot. It's like, well, you're trying to build an airtight envelope and do all these things so that with HRVs, so you can have this great natural ventilation. Are you allowed, people ask this all the time, are you allowed to open a window? Doesn't that mess up the system? And the answer is, of course, always yes. But what's great, if it is one of those really bad days where you've got, you know, forest fires or whatnot, really polluted, then at least you can close it up and have a nice, healthy indoor environment. Kind of looking at that space. You know, when you have something that's kind of funny, when you have something that's open and you live in an earthquake zone, you got to find extra places for structure. You know, this was one of those elements that became a major structural element for shear. There, sneaky little spot for that. Going upstairs, when you get to the landing, you turn left, you've got your bathroom for the 2 bedrooms, and you turn right, you've got this one small bedroom. They didn't want to make the bedrooms too big and comfortable because, you know, when your kids go off to school, they need to kind of, you know, spread their wings and be on their own. So you don't want them to stay too long when they come back. And this is the mechanical room, mechanical and storage. That's where again, the HRV and the mini split air handler is. These 2 rooms have, again, it's not shown in the model, but have head unit, the air handlers individually for each room again. So one of these could be used as a workout room, and it's zonable. That's one of the great things about mini split systems is if you have them on multiple heat pumps, sometimes you need to, like you got what's called stratification, where maybe like a basement's cold, but your top floor is hot. Well, you can, of course, on a green home, you get a lot less of that, but still there can be some of it depending on the orientation of the windows. But also for use, like if, hey, I want to keep a bedroom really cold, or I want to have a workout room, you're able to kind of zone your system. And a traditional forced air system, it's all or nothing for the whole house typically. So, and by the strategy here was able to put those head units in this room, then this could be, you can make it really cold when for a little workout sesh. This coming through here, all this kind of cool volume you can kind of see in the hallway leading back, and these clear story lights that bring light into the house. And then this is the craft room that's got a sink and more storage closet back there. And of course, this again can open up to your outdoor garden deck. And then you move through into the main bedroom in the back. We've got a walk-in closet, you know, room for a big bed. We've got, again, this is kind of these high clear story windows. There's a house there, but towards the corner, we get past the house so we can drop the windows. This is the egress window. By the way, somebody asked earlier about what the windows are. The windows in this were all Anderson A100 Fibrex windows. They're super energy efficient. Windows are like a notch above, better than like a vinyl window. They're a little more rigid, but it was a lot of it was a design choice because you could get black on the inside and the outside like a fiberglass or like some aluminum windows, but at a much more affordable.
Taylor, we question in the chat about who supplied the cabinets. Do you remember? You
know what? I think it was, yeah, it was Abodian.
Oh,
yeah. So Abodian's, just a caveat, Abodian was a shop we used a lot. We really liked them, but then they had some weird happen. They went out of business, and that whole situation wasn't ideal, let's just say, for a lot of folks when that happened. Now they're back now, and I don't know if anything more about them, but used to, we really liked them, and they did a lot of our projects. But since, maybe worth doing a little research on them before you choose them. There's a lot of cabinet companies in Seattle, though. I mean, there's a lot of really good ones. We've used Huntwood, we've used IKEA, we've used, just, I feel like we've used most of them, and there's a lot of custom shops we like using. Yeah, so back here, you've got the toilet room that's separate. This is a little linen closet, and then you've got, the bathroom, the main bathroom. Yeah, so that's the tour of the house. Yeah, any additional questions? I'll just kind of fly around. We can look at stuff, but if somebody has more questions, feel free to put it in chat or.
When it comes to energy efficient homes, mini split technology is tough to beat. Like it's very responsive for this climate. If you get to a really cold climate and your exterior temperature, if it's like in the single digits Fahrenheit outside, sometimes the mini split systems, if it's like that for too long, their efficiency drops pretty quickly. But for the Northwest, it's hard to beat. They're perfect for this climate. They're electric rather than gas, which in this area, most of our electricity comes from hydroelectric, which is, there's no perfect energy source, but that's one of the better ones, but you can offset it with solar. So the fact that they're so energy efficient, they're electric, and they don't take up a lot of space inside your house, it's really a good system. And the HRV, same, for that, it's also very, very low tech. It's essentially a fan, that runs all the time, that exchanges, like Taylor was mentioning. There's an exhaust duct and an intake duct, and the air that's passing through those basically passes through it's not a mixer, but it's a type of a heat sink, so that you're transporting the energy in the wintertime. You've heated the air inside your house. You're bringing in fresh air from the outside, but you want that to be preheated. So the HRVs, what they do in their most fundamental sense is they move the heat energy from the air that is leaving the house that you have already paid to heat, and it moves that heat energy over to the incoming air. The good ones are almost like 90% efficient. So when you're talking about, well, how much heat does it actually move over? Somewhere between 75 and 90%. It's really remarkable that, that you can do that. Again, low tech, not a lot of moving parts, not a lot of maintenance. It's filtered. And, a lot of people think, well, there's a fan running 24/7. How is that energy efficient? It doesn't take a lot of energy to run these fans, and you're saving more energy by moving the heat over and preheating the air than you are spending by having the fan running. So it's by far a net gain to the energy use of the house.
Can I elaborate on my question?
Sure.
So, well, I mean, they may be low tech, but they're not all low cost, right? So I'm curious which system you went with, but my understanding is everybody loves the Zender, but it's not cheap. The other thing that I've learned is that people say the best practice is to have separate ducting from your heating system, and ducting can also be expensive. Yeah. So some people go, there's the Lunos, which is ductless, which looks interesting, but I'm just curious what your take on that is and what you used in this house.
Yeah, so this house, we're familiar with the Zender. Anytime, if you're going to build a passive house, which the standard, the certification standard is higher than it would be for this. This house, we used a Life Breath HRV. We have used the Zender. Yes, the Zender is expensive. The Life Breath a little less so, but when you talk to the folks that size these and install them, and you know, your mechanical contractor and your mechanical designer, most of the time the feedback on the Zender is, yes, it's more expensive, but if you have the money to spend on it, it's worth it. They're more efficient. The price of the ducting and the price of the the unit itself, you don't have to live in the house for very long before the efficiency of the unit itself and the energy benefit to the home, it's paid for itself, so to speak.
So do you have separate ducting for the Life Breath, or is it, or you do?
Yeah, separate ducting. The you're right. The prevailing pretty much like undebated best practice is to keep the ductwork separate, because you're doing really fundamentally they're two fundamentally very different things: the ventilation and the heating and cooling. So the HRVs, most of the time what you're doing with the HRVs is you're exhausting, like you're negatively pressurizing all of the moist spaces in the house. So you want to exhaust, you want to pull air from the kitchen and bathrooms, because that's the most moisture laden, and you want to supply fresh air to the rooms that you're in the most often. So that's your living room and your bedrooms, right? And it's hard to find a good reason to escape that really fundamental starting point with the design, with the ventilation design. Heating is a little different. And so the idea of, you want heat in most places in the house. You don't want to skip over providing heat to the bathroom, or the hallway, or the kitchen, whatever it may be. So these aren't big ducts. It's not cumbersome, both logistically or financially, or any of that. It's not difficult to separate the systems. You're not really gaining that much by sharing ductwork, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
the
thanks.
Lunos- Oh, go ahead.
I actually got a proposal that actually included a Life Breath, and the ducting for the heating system was a considerable chunk of change, new ducting. This is a remodel.
Yeah.
So perhaps I was mistaken in assuming that to keep the ducting separate would be doubling, doubling the cost.
Yeah. The thing that the entire home building industry is trying to recover from is the 1980s and before, when everything was handled with a central forced air unit, and they were always really poorly. They were always oversized. No one really thought about it. No one really designed and did load calculations for the furnace, like the central forced air furnace in a house. You assumed, well, we need this model. Well, let's just step it up one model and we'll know that'll take care of it, and then all of the ducting, there was not ever really any balancing done. So you get these scenarios where you have this oversized system that is just completely pouring air, like all of the velocities, like everything was just overdone. And it doesn't have to, it's taken a while for the industry to recognize that, like, it doesn't have to be this way. Let's be a little bit more careful about it. So yeah, the ductwork, is part of it. Ventilation is one of those things that it's most people you all are interested in it. You're here on this tour on a Saturday morning. You want to hear about, energy efficiency, and ventilation is like right in the middle of all of that. But most clients, it's kind of, it's a science part of the house. And like a lot of times Taylor and I will begin talking to clients about vapor drive and everything. We kind of see their eyes glaze over a little bit. But it also, it's been needing to happen for a really long time. And we're finally coming around to the idea that, an HRV is something that every house needs to have. And in Washington State, the energy code, we're heading really quickly to a scenario where it's going to be hard to meet energy code without an HRV, without balanced ventilation of some sort in the house. So those are all good directions that we're heading in.
Thanks.
The Lunos, by the way, those are, we've installed those on a couple of houses that we've done there. We're going to install them on a passive house that is currently being built here in Seattle, and they're fantastic. They are pricey, and it's a little tricky to. They're so new that there's not a lot of folks that know how to install them. But most of the time, what we've heard is that builders, they'll pitch it to their electrician, because there's some setup, like there's a controller, like there's some things you kind of have to know what you're doing. Most electricians, it's kind of in their wheelhouse. They take a look at it and say, yeah, I can handle this. Because there's some low voltage wires, there's some control wires that connect them all that, you need to install. But all that aside, I think it's tricky to do an entire house with ventilating with Lunos. They're fantastic for smaller spaces and remodel applications, for sure. They're great. And it's kind of one of those scenarios, if you're remodeling your house, the scope of your work prevents you from having an HRV, like a whole house-wide ventilation system. If you can do the Lunos, definitely a good move. Yeah, they're nice.
So somebody asked windows. The window, I put it in the chat, but the windows are mostly Andersen A100. They're FiberX products, so it's kind of something in between, fiberglass. It's just a composite material that acts a lot like fiberglass. One of the reasons we went with that, it's very energy efficient, but also it's black on the inside and the outside. So it was also an aesthetic kind of design decision. We wanted like the frame to match the exterior of the frame to match the interior of the frame. So that's most of the windows, and that's how we, how you egress out of each bedroom. Like this one's the egress window, and by code, every window, every room, every habitable room has to have a way out of the house. The only place we deviated for that are these big sliding doors. Originally we were kind of hoping to go with like NanoWall or La Cantina, but from a budget standpoint, it just didn't pencil. So what we did is we did aluminum wood clad Andersen windows, or just sliding doors on the upper level and the bottom, which are really big. They're like 4 feet by 8 feet tall, which is kind of about the maximum you can do. And then the two sliders open from the middle, which is a cost-effective kind of sneaky way to get something that looks like a big La Cantina or NanoWall door system, but it's at a much more reasonable cost. So just kind of one of those sneaky design moves. So these doors are sliders, the aluminum wood clad, and the reason we went with the aluminum wood clad, again, because of the size and the rigidity of the door itself. When it's built out of aluminum, they're just going to be a little bit more solid in the operation and how they slide and open. Yeah.
Taylor, someone's asking about the cost per square foot. Do you remember what that was? Again, this house was built, they completed construction, was it 2016 or 17?
Yeah, 16.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it wouldn't even apply, by the way.
Yeah.
But honestly, I think for the privacy of the owner, that's not something that I feel comfortable sharing. I mean, too much, but like I said, I would say this was, but to give you, because since the cost, I mean, we did a lot of cost-effective moves. We used the hardy panel, the aluminum siding is expensive, but it's not on a range screen. The windows, the Fibrix windows, the Anderson A100 they're basically one step above a vinyl window. So they're really good and energy efficient, but not expensive. Basically, the structure wasn't complicated or complex in any way. This definitely was some of the green stuff we did having to do with, again, the HRV, there are kind of what I would call above average costs of a home. This was definitely more than your average house, but it's also, we did a lot of things to try to keep costs in check. So this wasn't like I'll tell you, it wasn't 800 a square foot, but it also wasn't 200 a square foot. So.
Did it?
What's that? Oh, Dawn.
Taylor, you look really good.
Thanks.
I didn't mean to have my microphone on. I was having trouble navigating initially.
That's okay. Good to see you, good to hear you anyway.
You look really healthy.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, so
He didn't look that good. After he got his second vaccination, there was about a week or so where he was looking pretty ragged.
Yeah, I was pretty ragged there.
He cleaned himself up and got himself back in shape for this.
Hi, Kevin.
How are you doing,
I
Dawn?
haven't seen you in a long time either.
I
Sorry.
know.
There's other people here. I should just shut up and mute.
Oh, no, that's no worries.
No, that's fine.
We just want to see what you guys are doing.
Yeah. We're doing so that's kind of fun. We're experimenting with this virtual tour. So it's kind of fun. And actually that's kind of it. I think maybe, what we did last time was we just kind of started over. I don't know if but maybe before that if there's any more questions, anybody wants to pop in and ask some questions, we'd love to kind of field those. I see one. Okay. You bet, Richard.
Richard says thanks. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you all. Thank you all for showing up and for your interest. Last year when we did this, there were some folks that had like a follow-up. You can email us after this if kind of questions come to you later that you're not thinking of now.
I have questions.
Great.
I'm so sorry to interrupt you, but I was afraid you were going to close out without getting my questions in. I'm curious, the exterior surface on the home appears to be just concrete. Is that correct?
In parts. What I'll do real quick, let me stop share, and nobody's going to get closed out. You can hang out as long as you want. But let me.
Yeah, we're here till 11:30,
Yeah.
I believe, right?
I'm gonna go back to the finished pictures real quick. There. So this is good. So in the front, we have this is a freestanding concrete stem wall that's acting as both structure for these posts here and also connects to the bioretention planter in the front. So that is concrete and it's all separate from the house. Obviously concrete's really hard to insulate. So you can't insulate it. It makes the wall really thick. So what we were playing around with was trying to bring in some industrial materials in a cool way without having to go through crazy links to waterproof it if it was also an interior wall. So there's some concrete there. There's one concrete fin also to the right of the house that's kind of supporting the structure. And then the black is corrugated metal. The white is hardy panel. It's an open joint range screen system over with hardy panels to finished material. One thing that makes this a little bit more unique, this is the same product that you see if you're just driving around in what people like to call the boxes, like townhomes and stuff. Like it's on that too. So it's a very cost-effective material that lasts forever. But what we did was we just did it on an open joint. So the gaps in between don't have those reglets over them. So it makes it look a little cleaner. It's just a little trick of the detail to make it look and feel like a really high-end building panel, but it's still just hardy. And, you know, so low maintenance. And then the soffits, the two soffits here are clear cedar underneath here and here. And then the soffit for this roof is, again, just hardy panel, painted gray to match the kind of color of the fascia. And we did this one little fun move on the front. We did this steel fin. You can kind of see around this window, you know, this facade facing the street on the upper side only has one window facing the street, again, for privacy issues or concerns. And then this, but this little fin around it kind of makes it look special. So, and that's it. That's all. So even in the back, you know, we kept that theme going throughout. We have, you know, corrugated metal, cedar soffit, hardy panel, and yeah, that's it.
Thank you. I apologize, I came in late, so I'm curious what you used as roofing material.
Yeah, so the roof is TPO. Let's see, we got a shot of it here. So the there we go. So this part of the roof is what's called TPO. So it's too low, it's too shallow to put any other material. You can technically put metal on this, but it's so shallow that even that's not a good idea. So it's almost flat, and it's what you would use in any commercial flat roof assembly. It's kind of what we've gone to. They overlay these really thick, heavy gauge sheets of this product. It feels like it's like pool liner or like real thick rubber is what it feels like. And then they heat weld. They lay them and they stagger them, and then they heat weld them together. And so it makes this kind of uniform, impenetrable, hopefully, waterproof system. It's also what's under this roof as well. You can kind of see how thick this assembly is. The reason is because, well, it's a living roof. Part of it's a living roof and a deck. So, but it's the same product that's underneath that. And then there's a tray. The living roof system is our trays. So it's like this gridded, this black grid with these green trays that sit in to those trays. And then the deck above, this is just a wood deck that's on a sleeper system sitting on top of that.
Gotcha. And one more question about
Sure.
the mini splits, please.
Uh-huh.
My knowledge about them is pretty outdated. I'm wondering whether they are still low voltage. It used to be that the units in every room were powered by low voltage. Is that still the case, or they require 110?
It's all of the power comes from the exterior unit, and I don't believe it's low voltage. I believe it's line voltage. So they call them line sets. So it's a bundle. It's got the refrigerant loop and the condensation line, and then the power, the control, like the power line, and all of that comes from the outside, the exterior units, the ones you see up on the roof there.
Okay.
Yep.
I'm working off of a very old article in Fine Home Building magazine.
Right.
Haven't kept current with that. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, it's nice because you know, your electrician, like, you don't have to, when you see these units, whether they're mounted on the wall or they're like tucked inside, your electrician doesn't have to provide an outlet there for you to either plug it in or like you know, or like a hard wire that nothing's required. Your HVAC guy he just like comes in and puts them where you had them you know, designed and planned. And anytime you can keep trades from needing to overlap like that, where you don't have to get your HVAC outfit to cooperate with your electrical outfit, and that, you know, that's just one less point that they have to meet up on and coordinate. That's a good thing. So
Right. So
less chance for mistakes.
one last dumb question. Where is this home?
It's in Northeast Seattle.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It's a good question. I didn't ever mention that. Should have thought to mention that.
Well, I was just curious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We do homes all over King County, really, in the state, but most of them are in the city of Seattle, basically in most Seattle homes, because the lots are smaller, you don't have room to do like bioretention swales, like big areas to like let your rainwater dry out. So you got to do a lot. Most of the time we're doing planters. So this planter we decided to play it up as a design feature and kind of celebrate the water by kind of putting it in the front. And it's something you move next to as you move into the house. It's also tied to this concrete screen wall. And then we left this little sliver of opening here so that you could make that visual connection between the inside and the out. So it's this we did it all in one large place. Yeah, so, and then you can kind of see if we go down, let me clear my sketches there. So from the front, from the sidewalk, when you're looking at the house, it's right here. And right here.
Mhm.
Yep. A lot of times, you know, it was actually a little bit more complex to do it this way because a lot of homes, depending on, especially if you have a bunch of pitched roofs, you struggle to get all the water in one place. A lot of times, more often than not, we'll have 2 or 3 bioretention planters to move around. But we wanted to put as much water into this one and do this one move. But luckily, because again, going back to the concept of simplicity, you know, this is just a stacked house. That's one stacked on top of the other. The roof system is totally covering this area. So all of the rainwater goes back to this one edge, which allowed us to capture it and tie it into all of it into the one bioretention planter.
Is the roof oriented such that it could be equipped with solar at some point?
Yeah, the nice thing, it is pitched up to the north, but the nice part is it's such a flat roof. You could just put the solar panels anywhere on the entire roof. Here, I'll go back. Let me go find this aerial view. So that was definitely something that led us to the flat roof idea, because we wanted it to open up for more light, right? So it wants to pitch to open up to the south, but of course, if you do that too steeply, then you're putting your roof in shade. But in this case, it's so flat, they could literally cover all of this, and you could put the panels, you know, they put them where they can put them a little bit of an angle. And I think actually, Don, did you do that?
Yeah, hey Taylor, it's Carl.
Oh, hey Carl.
Yeah, so we did install a solar array 1 year later. And so it's on the upper part of the roof, so only on that upper area. So we're able to get about an 11 kilowatt system in there.
Perfect.
It's 11 kW. Does that get you close to annual net zero?
It gets us close. It's basically about 60% of our electricity usage.
Yeah.
So with the net metering and the production incentive, we're probably at we don't really pay for any electricity.
Yeah, that's great.
Cool.
Did you just out of curiosity, did you guys do you have any batteries as part of the system?
We didn't install any battery backups yet. That's something that we definitely are keeping our eye on. But yeah, we're currently don't have any retention system.
Yeah, that's one thing. It's a common misconception that a lot of folks have about getting a solar array, is that they think if for whatever reason the power grid goes down, that they can use whatever energy they're harvesting from their solar panels in their house. And that's actually not the case, because it's a Seattle City Light requirement that basically if the grid's down, they don't want a bunch of solar panels feeding the grid, because they've got to perform maintenance on it, and they need to know if there's, know for sure whether there's any energy in the grid or not. So a solar array doesn't provide like an alternative, like you can't access that power in the event that the grid goes down unless you have batteries. Then that becomes a thing.
Did Seattle require any kind of, I'm sorry, I forget the name of the term, where you have, say, a concrete driveway or patio that has, green plantings, moss or something to collect rainwater instead of one solid surface?
Yes.
Yeah. So you get to choose, right? If you do a pervious system like that, like a pervious paver or pervious concrete or anything like that, you don't count that. You don't have to collect it. In our case, what you can see here, here we go. So this was considered pervious because it's just a yard basically, but this is the only driveway we have that's solid. It's concrete and it drains into this this little drain right there. That's also tied to that bioretention planter. So it goes,
Okay,
it goes over and down to it. Yeah.
gotcha. Thank you.
Yeah. And also part of the system, of course, is the living roof here. While we're talking about it, you don't count that area too. So any water that lands on that, you get, that doesn't have to go towards the bioretention planter. So that's what's kind of fun about living roofs.
Yeah, Taylor mentioned this a little bit earlier, briefly, but the goal of a lot of the stormwater, the on-site stormwater infrastructure, is the way the city calls it, is that when it rains, the goal is not to eliminate feeding the stormwater system altogether. The major goal is a delay, that maybe it doesn't rain hard enough for it to even use the system, but it basically, all of the water that you collect on your gutters and downspouts and on your driveway, if that goes into the main system infrastructure at all, if it even makes it there, it's delayed. It's basically had a stopping off place, like it stays in the bioretention, or it gets held in the soil of a living roof. And so there's not an immediate demand on the city infrastructure, like, immediately during an event. If it does happen at all, it's got a time lag to it, and then therefore the overall demand on the system is usually a little bit lower also.
So we also, I forgot, but we also did the courtyard, what we call the courtyard between the screen wall and the house, that's pervious as well. So that's a paver system. Stop it. I'm pulling up pictures. Oh, Carl sent some photos of the solar array.
Oh, okay.
Let me,
I also,
did you?
the image, I put the image in the chat of the HRV filters.
Oh,
Also.
cool.
And I also emailed it to you. So, yeah, we can look at that if we want to.
Yeah, let me go back to share the screen. There we go. So here's the solar, it's on the upper middle roof. And yeah, like Kevin mentioned, it's 11 kilowatt. He said, I think it hits at any one time about 60% of their energy use, but like total through net metering, I think they're breaking even. So basically net zero. Yeah. Oh, okay. So, all right. So these are this is from another project, but it was, same setup. It had the HRV. The filter on the left is a brand new out of the box. The filter on the right is what the filter looked at after 1 year, right, Kevin?
6 months is what he said. But it was during the wildfire season that we had, and it was, I'm sure everyone remembers, or whether they want to or not. It was one of the worst ones that we've had. But yeah, that's after just 6 months of use.
Yeah. That's terrifying. All right. Go back to the model. What else? Were there any other good questions that we should raised for the group in there?
I think so. What types of, we did get a question about the floors. We were polished concrete on the ground level. What types of hardwoods did they use upstairs?
Yeah, it was white oak.
White oak. Mhm.
Yeah, it's a solid, it was an engineered white oak, basically, pre-finished. So it could come from the fact that we didn't site finish this. Site finishing is beautiful. I love it, but can be pretty toxic. They have better water-based, non-toxic sealers that they can use, but it's not quite as good as the old Swedish finish. But Swedish finish is real bad for the people that install it. So we try to avoid that when we can. But so with stuff that comes from the factory, pre-finish has like 7 layers of finish on it. It's a lot more durable. It doesn't have quite the cool look of like being uniform and flat like a site finish floor is, but they tend to be a little greener and a little bit more durable. All right, anybody else? Just fly around and look at it a little bit more. The software is pretty cool. We use it a lot for like doing solar studies. You can kind of see, depending on the time of year, we can kind of change the time of day. We do a lot of this while we're designing, both in office and with our clients, so they can see how it's going to work in the end.
And this same software allows us, we do have a virtual reality setup. So once COVID's behind us, we can open up the office again. But up until that happened, we would kind of clear out the conference room, move the table aside, and you could, if you wanted to, you could walk through the house virtually. And it's a great presentation tool. It's a great design tool. You know, you can stand there in the space virtually, and in real time swap out different finishes. So you can say, well, what does it look like if we have a white oak floor, or you know, what does it look like if we stain it really dark? And being able to make decisions with you know, with that level of information is really helpful for clients. You know, we try to set things up where when you make a decision about your home, you don't really have to imagine it. There's no anxiety that comes with, well, I think I could kind of see what that would look like. And so it's a great tool for that, for sure.
Also helps in communicating even with contractors, whatnot, that they can really get a sense and get a feel for what the concept is, you know, what we're trying to achieve.
The you know, Taylor mentioned a little bit about the living roof. Those are really, it's really interesting. The mix and the type of you know, plants that you get are dependent on the exposure. So you basically have to pre-order these systems, and they say, okay, well, what side of the house is it going to go on? They basically ask you questions about the solar exposure and like where it's going to be relative to the house, and they tailor the mix to the design to the extent that they can, and they pre-grow it, and then when it comes out, they're in these trays, and they already you know, they already have a really strong start, and You do need to water them for the first year or so, just to make sure that they're well established and they're mature enough to handle the droughts that we have in the summer here. So, but then after that, after the first year is behind you and all the plants are established, they're really hardy, and they're designed to be something that you don't need to think about. They're a great thermal insulator. Putting plants on top of the roof also makes the roof membrane last longer because it doesn't get exposure to the sun. Even though the roof, the TPO membrane, even though it's designed to be the final finished roof, you know, it does expand and contract with thermal fluctuations. So the sun comes up in the morning, it does get bigger, and then at night when it cools down, it contracts. And you do that for about 30 years, and it becomes a little more brittle. And so if you hide it, if you put plants on it, it doesn't undergo all of that and lasts a little bit longer. So.
Also, didn't mention in this second round, with the 5-star Built Green certification, there are a lot of other things, of course, that are great about this house. It's got, low VOC paints, low flow fixtures, energy efficient lighting, recycled content, locally sourced, materials, formaldehyde free cabinets, and trim. Yeah, I mean, basically all of that stuff. That all comes with part of the certification beyond the energy part. We always focus on the energy part because it has the most impact to carbon. But just, it does have a lot of that stuff that helps with the indoor air quality.
Thanks for coming by.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Appreciate it.